Thank you again for having us. We're having a fantastic time. Thank you for everyone's hospitality and for the great work that you do with the lectureship. It's a lot of work to get everything organised, and everyone does a fantastic job. Greetings from Devonport, Tasmania. We're about 3 hours from Hobart in northwest Tasmania. So the boat, the Spirit of Tasmania, comes from Melbourne and comes directly to Devonport. So we're actually in East Devonport, and the boat is right there in East Devonport. I was explaining it to Jodie before she actually saw Devonport, and I said it was a bit of a dump. But it is a bit of a dump in East Devonport where we live, but the rest of Tasmania is fantastic. So we've had a lot of people from here come to the camp, and would certainly like to advertise that again as well. That's in January this year, next year. So thank you to everyone that did come to the camp a couple of years ago, and it was fantastic. A lot of those kids that were there have grown up, and some of them, I know AJ, it was hard to recognise him. He'd lost a lot of weight, and he's very fit now. He was fit then too. But I'd also like to advertise another program that we have in Devonport. The elders there are wanting to have missionaries come from America, and we're trying to do up the top of the building so people can stay there. And the program's called the STAMP program, so it's short-term Australian missions program, and people may be able to stay there for 3 months or 6 months and maybe help out with the church anywhere around Australia. So we're hoping to get that underway, so keep that in mind if you ever have a need for someone in your area. They may be able to come and stay with you also, and a lot of that is there's been a lot of excitement created in Knoxville. There's a school of preaching there, so we're hoping some of the students will come from there as well. So my lesson today is the power of God, and this is a fantastic series that we're having on the attributes of God, and this one here is one that we probably all know pretty well. God is omniscient. He can see everything. He knows everything. God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. He's here with us today. And God is omnipotent, so he's all-powerful. So because he's all-powerful, he sees everything. He knows everything. And this lesson can be a bit of a test for us. So do we really welcome the idea that God knows everything about our lives? And we're going to look at Psalm 139. And this is the perfect psalm really for studying this topic. In verses 1 to 6, we'll talk about that omniscience of God, how he sees everything. In verses 7 to 12, his omnipresence. Verses 13 to 18, his omnipotence, and then a conclusion in the last 6 verses. So let's just go through this idea of omniscience at the start here. And it says here in verse 1, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. So we have someone who knows everything about us, everything that we've ever done, every bad thing that we've ever done, every good thing that we've ever done. And that's a fantastic thing if we're a Christian. So he forgives us of our sins. He's, as we saw last night, he's our Father. He wants the best for us. And so a father, when their kids do something wrong, they're understanding, they still want the best for them, they have unconditional love. But for someone who's not a Christian, they can't really claim this same love from God, that God still loves them, obviously, and wants them to come to him. But God doesn't overlook those, even those lies that we said, all those wrong things that we know we did. Before we got married, I was confessing all the bad things that I'd done to Jodie, because I thought I didn't want her to marry me under false pretenses, sort of thing. But she knows a lot about me, not everything though, but only God knows all things. But I'm thankful that Jodie was still desperate enough to marry me. It's fantastic. So it worked out well in the end. But God knows everything about us. So this can either be a terror or it can be something that we take great comfort in. And he says there in verse 2, "Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off." So God knows when we're sitting down. He knows when we're up and working. He knows everything about us. Unfortunately, sometimes we might sit down too much in our work for the Lord, and often we need to be up and doing and getting work done for the Lord. And it's very easy in our culture to work hard and then come home and then just sit on the couch, watch TV for 6 hours and then go to bed. But God knows everything about us, our down sitting and our uprising. So we need to make time for uprising, for working for the Lord. And he understands our thought afar off. So every little thought that we have, he knows it before we even have that thought. God knows everything about us. And it says in verse 3, "Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways." So everything we do during the day, we need to remember that God is watching. And what are our ways like? How do we structure our day? Are we disciplined? Are we lazy? Are we what are our ways like? And God considers all these things. Verse 4, "For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether." Death and life are in the power of the tongue, it says in Proverbs 18, verse 21. So every word we say is important. Every thought we think is important. So God knows our hearts, and out of our hearts come our words. So be careful of our words. God sees them, he hears them. "Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me." So our past, our present, he's all around us. He knows all that we have done. He knows all that he wants us to be. "And such knowledge is too wonderful for me," verse 6. "It is high, I cannot attain unto it." So we can't attain to this sort of knowledge that the Lord has, omniscience, but there is a knowledge that he does give to us, and that's the knowledge of his word, and so we can know the truth, and that makes us free. So that's omniscience. Let's look at God's omnipresence. It says in verse 7, "Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence?" And a lot of people try to escape God today. So they're trying to fill that void that they might have spiritually with other things. And you can see that very much with what's being pushed in the schools. There's evolution, so that almost fills that place where we would say the world was created by God, so people don't have to think about God. That fills that void that people have. Other things that are pushed in the school now, and it's almost become a religion, is climate change. So that's become just another part of this religion. So you've got evolution, you've got climate change, you can add to that transgenderism now and homosexuality, and even with the COVID recently, there's all this panic, and people have filled this void that spirituality should take the place of. They've filled it with this other religion, and so this other religion, if you're not a part of it, if you deny it, you are a heretic to that religion. So it's important to be able to be an influence on others. God's everywhere, and we need to have our spiritual lives filled with the right things, and we need to be able to be an influence on others. So the kids in the schools can be a fantastic influence on their other students, even on their teachers who are wasting their time on this new religion. In verse 8, "If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there." So Daniel was talking about Yuri Gagarin up in space. He couldn't see God, but God was there. God has created everything. If I make my bed in hell, if I die, if I go to the grave, God is still there. If I commit suicide, I just go from one part of God's domain to another. And God is everywhere. If I take the wings of the morning, so as soon as the sun rises, the light of the sun fills the whole sky, and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, he's still there. Even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. So God is everywhere, whether we're here in Toowoomba, Tasmania, wherever we are. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. So the darkness is nothing to the Lord. He sees all. It's just like bright day when it's night time for the Lord. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. So a lot of people use that cover of darkness to do a lot of wickedness, but God sees it all. He knows everything. He's always there. So God is omnipresent. And then God is omnipotent, all-powerful. Verse 13, "For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb." So the Lord possesses our reins, our inmost feelings. He knows everything about us. He's covered us in our mother's womb, and that should be the safest place in the world, the mother's womb. But it's not today, unfortunately. So people, it's another part of this religion, actually, abortion. So if you disagree with that, you're a heretic as well. But This is a wonderful thing, the way the Lord's designed the child to be formed in the womb. If you look at Ecclesiastes 11 and verse 5, it says, "As thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that is with child, even so thou knowest not the works of God who maketh all." So that's a beautiful way to put it. Even now, no one knows how the child is formed in the womb, how they can't recreate this life that God has made. And that's a wonderful thing. God's great power is seen there. And so the psalmist here, he feels he must praise God. Verse 14, "I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well." And this is a verse that is a famous verse, and this psalm, in fact, is considered as one of the greatest psalms, even the greatest, some think. But this verse here shows the greatness of our bodies, our creation. So mankind is the pinnacle of God's creation. It's amazing all the intricate mechanics that go into the way we are formed. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. So that's God's great power. And verse 15, "My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth." So this mysterious way that God has created us. He created man from the dust of the earth, and then that continues life continues to be formed. "Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them." So again, beautiful poetry, and God knows everything about us. He knew what sort of people we'd be, whether we were tall or short or fat or skinny or all these things. God had a design for us, and that's a wonderful thing to think of God's great power. He knew all of our members. They were in his book, and we have to be in God's book of life as well. So the soul is more important than the body, and that is what God has designed as well. So our most important possession is not all these physical things that we have, but our soul. And he says in verse 17, "How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God, how great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee." So all the thoughts of God are amazing. So if we look at creation, there's a flower festival here in Toowoomba. I'd like to see some of the flowers. Every petal, every stalk of those flowers, every bird that we see flying, every tree, every leaf, they were all a thought of God. They were all designed by God. The way he's designed the church, the way he's designed the family, the way he's designed for us to go to heaven, they're all thoughts of God. When we look at the Bible, every word there is a thought of God. And so that should fill us with great wonder. And so the psalmist says, "How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God." So that's God's omniscience, his omnipresence and his omnipotence. And then we'll look at this conclusion now. "Surely thou wouldst slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men." So, because God sees everything, he sees the wickedness of man. And wickedness, because God is perfectly just, has to be punished. And so we should learn to hate wickedness as God hates wickedness. In verse 20 it says, "For they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain." And it's just a common thing for people to blaspheme the name of God. That's almost, that's nothing to blaspheme the name of God. There's other swear words that are used that are horrible as well. But people totally overlook that idea of blaspheming, taking the name of God in vain. But that to God is great wickedness. "Do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee, and am not I grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies." So this is strong language here. In Psalm 119, verse 168, or 158, sorry. Psalm 119, 158, "I beheld the transgressors and was grieved, because they kept not thy word." So we should, like God, be grieved at the wickedness that's around us, people not keeping God's word. And so the psalmist, because God sees everything, God knows everything, God's all-powerful, he's everywhere, he sees all this wickedness, and he hates it. We should also hate wickedness. And then in the last couple of verses, verse 23, it says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts." So this is that great test again, isn't it? And if we're not a Christian, this again is a terrifying thing for God to search us, to know our hearts, to try us. But we will all be judged one day. And there's a lot of people that you talk to, and it's probably actually maybe most people, in Proverbs 20 and verse 6, this is probably most people that you might talk to. Proverbs 20 verse 6, "Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find?" So when you're talking to people, they normally say, "I'm a good person, I've done a lot of good for people, I think God will weigh up my good against my bad and I'll be able to get through those pearly gates." Or they, even as an atheist, they just think, I'm a good person, I'm better than a lot of the hypocrites that are at church. And that's one thing that often prevents people from coming to church, because of all the hypocrites that are there. But there's always room for one more, so got to bring them in. So that can be a good thing to tell them. But people can't really see their own faults, but God sees all these. And the more we learn about the Bible, the more actually we do see our own faults. It's like a mirror that we hold up. And so often those that have been in the church a long time, they might be very conscious of a lot of things that other people are not. So the more we look into the scriptures, the more we should learn, and the more we should want to try and conform to God's ways. And verse 24, "And see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." So the way everlasting is the way we want to be in. And if you haven't been baptised, you can't be in the way everlasting unless you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, unless you repent of your sins. And if you can't see that you've got sins, you have, because everyone who has reached a certain age has sinned. And any of those sins, the smallest sin will keep us out of heaven. So we need God, we need repentance, and we need to be baptised. So after confessing Christ, when we say, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, then when we're baptised, we have all those sins forgiven. And then God's omnipresence, his omniscience, his omnipotence, we don't need to, we can actually take comfort in those things rather than be fearful. And so if you haven't become a Christian, now's the time to do that. If you're have strayed away from the way of that everlasting way, and we can do that as we go through our Christian walk, we can turn back to the Lord. So is there any questions today? Yes.